This is Eitan Weinstein.
And I'm Naor Menninger, and you're listening to Two Nice Jewish Boys. Imagine this. It's 2011 and you're managing a hospital in Aleppo, Syria. Life is ordinary until a thunderous storm of civil unrest erupts into the Syrian Civil War. Chaos reigns as the conflict intensifies, and the Assad regime's iron fist descends upon anyone suspected of opposition. Amidst this turmoil, Shadi Martini, the general manager of that very hospital, becomes a beacon of hope. He and his comrades work tirelessly, covertly providing aid to wounded and ill civilians as they navigate the treacherous landscape of a city under siege. In the heart of the Syrian war's darkest days, Shadi Martini's initiatives shine with unwavering resolve. His dedication to helping those in need knows no bounds. But as the conflict rages on, danger lurks even closer. In 2012, a deadly twist of fate shatters their clandestine network. Discovery by the regime forces Shadi into an impossible decision: stay and risk certain death, or flee the war-torn country that was once his home. Today, Shadi Martini is not just a survivor, he's a symbol of resilience and compassion. As the chief executive officer of Multi-Faith Alliance, he tirelessly advocates for humanitarian aid and bridges cultural divides. His mission transcends borders, encompasses Syria, humanitarian aid, and Israel, topics deeply intertwined with his extraordinary journey. We're thrilled and honored to have Shadi Martini on the show with us today to discuss his life, Syria, humanitarian aid, Israel, and much, much more. Thank you so much for joining us, Shadi.
Thank you, Naor, for the lovely introduction, and happy to be with you on your podcast.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, that Eitan is not here. He's sick, and he couldn't join us. Wow, Shadi, where do we start from? It's like what is like? I want to jump really back. Okay, like how was your childhood in Syria?
Very. Probably normal childhood. I don't know, but Middle Eastern standard, let's say, normal childhood. Sometimes Middle Eastern standards are very weird for people in other countries like the US right now. But I was brought up in like an upper middle class society. Both my parents were physicians. My mother was an oral surgeon and a dentist. My father was an ophthalmologist. And my mom was like probably the first woman doctor in oral surgeon in northern Syria. So she was a type of pioneer. And we lived in Syria. My upbringing was totally under the Assad regime. So I never knew anyone but the Assad government, like a president, but the last name.
Father.
Yeah, brought up under the father and then under the son. We were never a political family. We were, moderate Muslims. We were never very religious or very secular, like a lot of the population of Syria, middle of the road, moderate religious people.
You grew up in Aleppo.
Yes, I grew up in Aleppo. I finished high school in Aleppo. So I lived all this period during, also witnessed the 80s when there was a revolt by the Muslim Brotherhood against the Father Assad, and what happened in the city of Hama that was besieged. I witnessed the army come into our house in Aleppo to search it for books, specific books that they think that spreads radical Islamic, ideology or stuff like this. So I lived through this. I lived through a demonstration. Then everything came very calm, and nothing was happening. I went.
Wait, I lost you for a second, Shadi. Can you hear me?
you know, yeah.
I lost you for a second.
Oh, okay.
So can you get to the last sentence from the beginning?
So after finishing high school, I went to study college in Lebanon. I was in Beirut. I lived in Beirut for 4 years. And also there, I was during the Syrian occupation of Lebanon. So Syria controlled everything, and me being a Syrian in the middle of that exposed me to a lot of things. I was I was sleeping when I lived close to the American University of Beirut, so I woke up one day 4 a.m. My ears are buzzing, and after that, next day, we didn't know what happened, but there was glass all over me, and the admission building of the American University got blown up. And I was just right next to it. So I've witnessed some interesting events. Then went to establish a manufacturing business in Bulgaria, where I lived. And then I went back to Syria in 2007 to run my family's business, which was growing. We established a private hospital, built a private hospital in the early 80s, and we had a lot of other businesses. And I was the only child who went into business. So my siblings were either physicians or in engineering. So my dad was requiring someone who has a savvy business background. And there, when I came back and run my family business, and 2011 happened, the Arab Spring in late 2010, and I was in the middle of it.
We'll get to it in a few minutes. I wonder, growing up there, becoming a young adult in Syria, like how do you perceive? Many people, I think, don't know that Syria is a dictatorship of a puny minority.
Yeah.
That's called Alawis.
Yeah.
They are, some say, a sect of Muslims, but
Yeah.
I guess it's debatable. And they rule a huge majority of, I don't know if it's Shiite, Sunnis.
Sunni. The biggest majority
Sunnis.
is Sunni. Shia is a very tiny minority in Syria.
And that regime was fabricated, right, more or less by the West, or correct me if I'm wrong. Like, who put the Assad family in power?
Well, there is a lot of theories in Syria. So the most prominent theory actually is that it was Israel that helped Hafiz Assad control Syria, and the price for that was giving up the Golan Heights. That's a very prominent theory in Syria. Now it's circumstances. Probably Hafiz Assad was a smart guy. He understood the landscape of world politics and regional politics and took advantage of it to the maximum. He used the contradiction of the Syrian societies. There was a big divide between the countryside and the city elites, let's say that. And me coming from the city elites, let's say, so I understand what happened, probably because I witnessed something similar to it when I went back 2007. Like, it was a full circle, like his father used them, but then a lot of them revolted against his son. So it was he empowered some of the people who were marginalized communities, and at the same time he portrayed himself to be a protector of minorities. So he used this elements, all of this for his personal gain and power.
But when you grew up, did you feel like around you, in home, outside of home, at school, like was there bitterness that you're under, like this small random minority?
Yes, there was bitterness. There was like Syrians at the beginning, they weren't that much, but after that it became like they saw things becoming more sectarian. It's like more of Alawite minority controlling more and more of key positions economically, and most importantly military and intelligence. And there was some other people from other regions of Syria, but the key positions, the key command structure was mainly being controlled by Alawites. Of course, there was his brother, who later tried to overthrow him, was also a prominent figure in the regime structure. So yes, Sunnis had a bitter thing regarding. They felt that they're being marginalized. They felt that their economic interest is being suppressed. Especially, there was a lot of resentment in the north, and somehow in Damascus, but mainly like if you go from Hama to Idlib, Aleppo, these cities were the major heartland of Sunni elites. So they were very frustrated with that. And this is what happened in 1980. Like part of the Muslim Brotherhood was also resentment toward the Alawist control of the government. And of course, the Muslim Brotherhood took advantage of this resentment and revolted against the regime.
And why did it's a bit of a sensitive question maybe, but
no, go ahead.
Your parents were apparently extremely savvy and intelligent, and why would such people stay under this dictatorship? Why didn't they go?
Actually, it's an interesting question. I don't know if I have the perfect answer for you. My parents did their residency in Barcelona in Spain, so they were living in Spain. And but Syria back in before like Assad came was a very prosperous country. Like the standard of living was high, and for them, I think they saw there is an opportunity because of lack of physicians like them to go, and they made a lot of money. Like when they came back and opened their practice, there was a need for specialties that they have, and they made a lot of money. The problem is that there was not a lot of things you could spend it on in Syria. Like we had very few access. Like we were a very socialist society that is borderline going towards North Korea. Actually, Hafiz Assad was like very much influenced by North Korea. When he came back, he adapted a lot of the same structures, like even more than the Soviet Union, even though he was their allies. But he that like this cult of the one leader and like giving the reign of power to his next of kin was a North Korean thing. Like Soviet Union, you has change of leaders. It wasn't about a person and his family, like we call it like a republican monarchy. Syria, something like that. So that was adopted from. But for them, it was they were making good, and they were happy to live among their friends, their family. They didn't want to. They felt at home. That's their home. And they were doing very good. So this is why they came back.
And before we get to the war, one last question that I have to ask you is how, growing up, what did they teach you about the Jews?
Oh, everything. Jews are bad. Jews are the source of all evils in the world.
Jews or Israelis?
No, Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Israelis is like is part of this Jewish thing. Of course, some people try to make the difference, but you have to understand growing up in Syria, like I was born in 1972, so late 70s, 80s is when I formed my positions. We didn't have access to internet, or like even the libraries were very controlled what books we read. One TV station, so there was no satellite. So we had all these things coming into our minds, and the books we read. For instance, books I read was one actually. Later on, I understood that it was actually Nazi propaganda, but by then it was supposed written by the defense minister of Syria, who was actually Sunni. His name is Mustafa, and he wrote this about the blood matzah, and it was about a story of Jewish.
It's a recite book.
Yeah. He made it into like it happened in Damascus, like these Jewish rabbi and they went and kidnapped this Christian kid and slaughtered him and drained their blood to put it in the matzah. And protocols of the elders of Zion, and I read it, and we believed it as gospel. For us, your defense minister is writing this. I mean, the guy have resources, and you live in a society that no one like had freedom of speech or a critical thinking that say, oh, come on, blood and matzah, like if Jewish
Not even a good combo.
yeah, it doesn't work. Like if you know
sausage is okay.
Yeah, I know.
Matzah.
This is the issue. Like a lot of people didn't know what Judaism is, what's forbidden, what's permitted if you're a person of the Jewish faith, So we believed all of this, and on and on and on. I can tell you about, and no one argued with it. We collectively believed these things, and a lot of us grew up. And if you don't want to, like, even if you were later on, you exposed to so many things, if you don't make the effort to go and learn and try to, and with an open mind and see it, a lot of people still believe it, that's true. This is what they grew up with. So that was the view.
Unbelievable. Okay, so let's jump to the war. To the Civil War. So first of all, if you can explain, because I guess many people don't really remember anymore, why did this Civil War erupt and where did it find you?
So I'm not political. I wasn't a political person. Actually, my family was very close with the government structure. Now we didn't have any issues. And actually, my cousin's still a minister in the current government with Assad. So
Wow.
yeah. So we are still, I wasn't at all political in this. And when we first heard the news that's coming from Daraa, which is the province close next to Israel, like the Golan Heights, and we didn't understand what was happening. Like from time to time, there was some unrest, but we are very tense because of what's going on in the whole Middle East with the Arab Spring, and governments being overthrown. So we didn't know if that was, some local event or something bigger. And this area of Haran and Daraa are traditionally they are very close to the regime. A lot of they are Sunni, but a lot of the people there would go into the Baas party and the Mukhabarat structure. So there's a term we call them the Alawites of the Sunnah, that, because they're very close to the regime. So we were a little bit surprised, people on the north who are traditionally anti-Assad. So we were surprised of this. And then we learned that what happened, because they are tribal and they have very prominent family, these kids on a school was writing graffiti about what they're hearing on the news, the people want to overthrow the regime and stuff like this. So the head of the political police we had, who was a cousin of Bashar Assad, went and arrested them. And they tortured them, beat them. And they were from these families of this, and everyone is connected. So the prominent family members and the elders came to this guy and asked him to release them, and he was very aggressive toward them. And there was a statement that he made that exploded everything, was forget about your children, go back home and sleep with your wives and make new children. If you can't do so, I'll send my men, they'll make new children with your wives. So for a traditional Middle Eastern tribal society, that was a huge insult. And there's other versions that they actually put there. There's something that the Arabs put that's called Aigal, the something that is round. That's very has a huge symbol for people who are from Arab tribal heritage. And they put it on his table, we put this as respect. And he took these and he threw it in the garbage. So all these things made people angry, and there was a demonstration, and the response was brutal. So the government came and started shooting at the demonstration, and 4 people killed. And then the snowball effect, started, more demonstration, more crackdown, more demonstration, and then it transferred to other cities that had other grievances. Like the other cities didn't have the same grievances. Areas in Syria went up in uprising for different grievances. It wasn't the same. And there's a saying in Syria that actually whose response, who started the revolution is not demonstration or the kids, is Bashar Assad himself, because his crackdown created the snowball effect, and all the frustrations everywhere in Syria came to the surface. So people continued for peaceful for about 6 months, but the crackdown was getting harsher and harsher and harsher. More military means are being used, and after that, things became more militarized.
Could you
And
believe what you're witnessing? Could you believe you're living this historic moment?
no. To be honest, I thought the 3 months that it was not going to explode. You have to understand, Syria was controlled very tightly. The intelligence services were everywhere. We were afraid to even say a joke. We say a joke that have political meanings, we will whisper. Even I have it until now with me when I'm outside, I'm talking politically. Somehow I lower my
It's
voice.
physical.
Yeah, it's like this is, and I look around me is there someone who looks like Syrian or Arab or something?
Yeah.
This is the level of fear we had. So we never expected that thing, especially my generation. Probably the younger generation didn't witness what happened in the 80s and the brutality, because we witnessed people being put, they will stop cars, they will bring 20 young men, put them on a wall, and then shoot them. That was a normal practice in the 80s. So we knew how brutal the regime could be. So we were afraid. But the young people, they didn't witness that, and they wanted more freedoms. They were seeing everything changing around them, and I said, what the heck, let's try it. And then we got a civil war.
And where does it really hit you on the nose for the first time?
It was Bashar Assad's first speech in the parliament in late March 2011. That was when I thought, shoot, this is going to be a bloodbath. We were hyped during these several weeks by officials from the government that reforms are going to be made, things are going to change. We're listening to the frustration of the people and what's happening, because there was a lot of economic distress and problems in the country. Corruption was high, and people were leaving the countryside, trying to make it into the cities with high rents, very low salaries. Salaries were you would get $150. If you get $200 a month, you'll be very good salary. So and prices were going up, so it was unsustainable. So we thought, okay, he's going to offer us a solution. And then came the speech in Parliament. He was laughing in a very obnoxious way, and he was just telling us his version of what happens. All is a conspiracy. All is this, American imperialist Zionist conspiracy against their resistance regime. And then his final solution: if you continue, that's war, and we'll crush you. And we were, no, it's there. People are not going to stop by now. And too much blood was spilled, and people revolted even more. And that was the moment I knew that Syria is going to be very bloody and very long.
Now, you run a hospital by that time.
Yeah.
Your family's hospital.
Yes.
In Aleppo.
Yes.
And Aleppo became one of the main places where battles took place. So where did you actually experience war outside your window?
And not at the beginning, it wasn't very active. Early 2011, Aleppo wasn't. And war actually came to Aleppo directly, battles on the street were around late summer 2012. But before that, there was a lot of fighting starting to happening in the countryside, assassinations, some kind of car bombings. Of course, there was demonstration at the beginning, especially in the university, which was very close to our hospital. Like people will demonstrate, and sometimes we'll see people running and trying to get into our hospital because there were entrances and exits, try to get in and get out. People were following them. Regime used a lot of these thug militias, not there, that would brutally beat people, sometimes with knives and other stuff. So it was very, very brutal. So, and we started seeing more and more people getting, shot at, some people getting stabbed, and then started in around New Year's, early like December, January, we started receiving more wounded from military activities in the countryside. And that's when we started seeing more and more roadblocks, more and more military.
Wounded from the rebels or wounded from
At the beginning, it was from everyone, but we would rebels, like people who were fighting, we wouldn't get them, but we would get people who, because hospitals we can't, they will come and pick them up, but we will get their families. And at the beginning, it was okay. Then their family members were being threatened of being picked up. And this is actually when I started helping people who are being wounded and needed treatment, but they couldn't come to our hospitals or other hospitals. So we helped them, provide them with the equipment and the consumables and the medication to try to save themselves. So we really were, trying to help these civilians that can't go to the hospital just because their family name is the same family name of someone wanted to the regime. So they couldn't come. So this is what we tried to do.
And you had mukhabarat in the hospital, I guess.
All the time, all the time. So usually you would call the police if there's a shooting, someone come wounded with a bullet wound, you'll call the police. When these things escalated in 2011, every branch of the intelligence services in Syria came and gave us a number that we need to call them. We had a list, big list. Like we had to call so many people. And I was like, why do we have? No, call us all. This is the system in Syria. It's like, like the US check and balances to control the government. In Syria, the Assad regime check and balances so they can control everything. So even mukhabarat branches spy on each other. They don't trust each other. They're also a competition. So we had the military intelligence, Air Force intelligence, political police, so many branches, and of course the normal police. We had to call each and every one of them, tell them, oh, we have a person with a bullet wound, we have a person that was beaten. These were the signatures of someone might be a sympathizer of the opposition or some family member of an opposition figure or one of these fighters.
So you would need approval to treat them?
No, we didn't know who's coming in, but once you come in, you have what you have to the emergency room, you start treating them, but immediately you call. So they would come during, like they were very fast. They always had like either a representative in our hospital or like they were very close. So let me give you an example. A kid came in who was like 4 or 5 years old, who was shot with a bullet that actually went through his like one side and exited through his stomach. So the kid was in a very terrible shape. So they came in and immediately, like I went, what's going on? We had other wounded, but this kid had 2 mukhabarat questioning him. Where did you get hit? What happened to you? And the kid, and I was listening to him, and the kid, while the doctor was trying to save him, patch him up, and he said, well, the terrorists were on the tank and they shot me. And we were it was very funny for us because back then we knew only the army had a tank, so that no one knew that everyone knew that it was the government that shot the kid. But they said, okay, go and get him, but his family was so afraid, so they taught him like it's the terrorists. So this is how people behave. This is how people talk just to get treatment.
It's very hard to imagine the situation you've been through. When do you start, like, I don't know, crossing lines, flirting with what's allowed for you to do and what's not allowed for you to do as a hospital manager?
It was probably late summer 2011, probably, and it was through other friends that in the hospital. So we were beginning to feel frustrated, like things are becoming more bloodier, people are becoming helpless, they needed help, and I remember one of my friends come to me and said, like, what are we do? Are we going to still like just like this, do nothing? And I thought about it, and I always thought that, my son was like very young back then. He was like 3 years old, and I was like, okay, what am I going to tell him after he grows up, like about Syria? He's probably going to read, what did you do? Well, I took care of business. We had money, so I cared about the money. I didn't feel like he would look to me in a very nice or like proud of what I did. So I thought, like, in these moments, you need to do something. You can't just sit around, not do anything, only care about your property and your bank account or anything. But this is more bigger than one person. So that's when I started with friends organizing and buying equipment from ourselves. We had money. We were well off. So we didn't need anyone. So we bought stuff, and we were in hospital, so I could buy a lot of stuff and no one would notice. And we started.
You hid it like in all the
Yeah. It was like I was going to the hospital.
invoices.
Yeah. It was all hidden, and we started giving it to and the university was a very crucial part. Students in the university were from different cities in Syria, so we had like these types of cells that came to us and asked us for consumables and medication and equipment, and we would give it to them, and they will send it to their cities that by then were becoming besieged. Like the regime tactic was besiegement of areas, depriving them of food, medicine, of anything, so they could starve until they surrender. And it's a very effective tactic. It's brutal but effective, and we were trying to help these people, like try to stay alive.
And the risk was death for you and all your loved ones.
Death, and probably tortured until death.
Yeah.
And there was other people that we know that were tortured and were killed.
But also you risk your family.
Yes, it was a huge risk. I tried, like, this is why I moved my wife and kids outside the country in late 2011, and I came back, and I tried to not tell like my parents or my sibling or anyone else that what I was doing, so they wouldn't have to be harmed because of that. Even though the regime wouldn't stop at this, but I thought that was the best way not to make them harmed.
And were you interrogated?
No, I wasn't interrogated. They never believed I was fool enough to do something like that. Like most of the people who had financial interests and didn't participate. So, like I said, we were very close to a lot of the regime structures. So, like, no one probably suspected me to be foolish enough to do something like that. Like, I risked everything. I lost everything. All my property, everything I own, everything.
How did you lose it? What happened?
They confiscated it. The government confiscated it. And
because of your involvement?
Yes, because of that.
Wait, so we jumped.
Yeah, and I have a arrest warrant from the Air Force intelligence.
Okay, so I want to get to how it happened, but there was also, I hope I'm not confusing, but there was also a water initiative during
that's later. That's later on. That's my involvement with Israel.
Okay, so we'll get to that in a second. So just tell us, how did you end up becoming a refugee and fleeing Syria?
Yeah, well, after we were discovered, I was luckily, I used to.
How were you discovered?
It's a very interesting story. Like the intelligence services of the regime are very savvy and sophisticated. So they infiltrated the Free Syrian Army, which was the opposition armed forces, which is the Free Syrian Army was a brand, but in reality, most of the people, like the commanders, were local warlords. Like they weren't of military background. So the intelligence of the regime infiltrated them. So they knew that there was a group doing something, like, but they needed to figure out who. So they two of the assistants of one of these warlords arrested two of our cell, and they started interrogating them. So we had to go to them using another person from opposition forces that know us personally and know what that we are trying to help the wounded, to go and tell them no, because they said they were regime sympathizers, that they were regime agents, the people who are anti-regime. So they interrogated them. We told them that we are not with the regime, we're actually against regime, but we're in regime territory. And after this incident, the regime had all the information. So our suspicion is that people inside the opposition gave the regime all the information. Otherwise, they wouldn't know. And from that moment, all our cell, which was the people who were not known to a lot of individuals in Syria, had arrest warrants for them, and I was one of them.
How did you know there's an arrest warrant for you?
They came to question my father.
They didn't find you?
No.
They went first.
I was abroad. Luckily, I was visiting my family.
Pure luck.
Pure luck. I used to go outside and come back. I was coming back, had a flight back home, and the fighting was so extent that all flights were canceled and airports in Aleppo and other places were shut. So the only way to go back was through Beirut, and there was no reservations. So I took a reservations that was later to go back. I was going back. Everything I have, everything I have was left there. So clothes, everything. Like, I had a small bag with me. I just went for a week, two, and coming back. And that's when it happened. So when my friends called me and said, "Don't come back," I didn't believe him. So I called my father, and my father we had a code. In Syria, you talk with code because everything there is someone listening to. So he was like, "Oh, where are you now?" I said, "Well, I was in the US, came to Bulgaria, and I'm coming back." And he said, "Oh, Bulgaria is a nice country, stay there." And my dad never told me to stay there. I was when you are coming back and come back quickly. But so then I knew that my friend was telling me is right. And after that, of course, we all knew, I understood that they came and like questioned him about me. They were trying to find me. They couldn't find me. So I knew I was wanted. And then there was a leak of arrest warrants, and my name was one of the people who were wanted. And of course, the document for seizure of all property also came out, so we knew.
And were your parents, your family harmed?
They were harassed. They were harassed a lot. They were harassed, but weren't like, let's say, didn't go to prison. Only my brother, but I think it was unrelated to my issue. But my parents didn't. It was tough. But I thought that if I stop doing what I'm doing, the pressure might be increased on them because the regime will think that it worked. So I thought, let's stop communication with them, and my parents could say that I'm a bad son. He doesn't listen to us, and they would stop. And luckily, this happened. It was very hard for me because I couldn't speak to my mother and father for the last 5 years before they passed away. I couldn't talk to them when they passed away even. So it was very tough. It was very hurtful. This is something that will last with me forever, like not being able to say goodbye to my parents. But I thought that's the price to sacrifice to keep them safe during these times. They were of age. They weren't young people.
And did any of your conspirators, was anyone executed or?
No, most of them, some of them were arrested, but later released. A very bad situation, but some of them
they
died.
Were tortured.
Yeah. During one of my colleagues were tortured a lot. He almost lost his foot because of torture, but he was released. So there was people that was killed because of the military activity, but not under the the torture, like the people of my cell. But of course, there's a lot of other people that were killed under torture that I know of, but not in our group that we were working.
Okay, so there's a few more things I want to cover in the little time that we have. So let's talk about the water project, because you become a refugee. You settle right away in America, or it takes some time?
No. I went to stay between Bulgaria and Turkey, and that's when like I was because I knew Bulgarian. I lived there. I have a Bulgarian passport, so it was easy for me to go there. And during my stay in Bulgaria, I met. Was introduced to an Israeli NGO that, and I was, a friend, like, would you like to meet this NGO? And I was like, yeah, of course. We were looking for aid. Syria was somehow becoming very, very brutal and people are desperate, but there was not a lot of aid coming to Syria in the first several years. And refugees were starting flooding Europe, and people were like surprised. But it was like 2013, and the war was going on for like more than a year and a half. So we needed all the help. So I was very skeptical, like I told you, my background is Jews are bad. Like, why do they want to help someone? You guys only kill people, and tell people. This is our perception. This is how we look. So when they came and I met them, and to be honest, I don't know why I met them. Probably because I was desperate when I would think that we needed all the help we can. But I was very skeptical. With all the conspiracy theories come to mind. Oh, they are Mossad. They want to know something. And I was like, what do they want to know? What can I offer them? Nothing. I have no information. So we met and we started talking, and they started telling me how they're pure NGO that's only they care about helping people. They help people all over the world, and Syrians now need help, and how we can help. So I was like, okay, and that brought some credibility, and said, let's try it. And we tried, and we started working, and they really came through. They provided some aid. I provided it. Then we had a very interesting story with a friend of mine who was his son was about to die because of a heart condition, and he was living in Aleppo under siege and everything. And I was like, and he said, like, can you get some NGO around the world to help me out? And I was like, no, your problem is a visa. I can't get a visa. There are places, but you can't get there. And then I called my Israeli friends, and they said, well, we can do it, because there was 3 countries, like Germany, the US, or Israel. And I said, can you get a visa? And they said, we can. So we got this kid from Aleppo to Israel, and we had his heart surgery, which is successful. And now he's I think he's almost 17 years old. Wow. Yeah, and he was like going to die, but it was a very interesting exchange with his father, because his father needed to come with him. He was a young child, so one of his parents needed to come. So I told his dad, the only place you can go to that I can find you is Israel. And there was this silence on the other line. And I was like, hello, you're still there? And he was like, where? And I said, Israel. This is the only place. So, and he was like, are you for real? I said, yeah. And he was, I was worried to tell him, because he didn't know I was working with Israeli NGOs. So he was worried. I was worried, but at the end, he took the risk and he went. And when he came back, his attitude was so positive. He told me so fascinating stories. And of course, the saving his kid was amazing. So there was these incidents that brought us more and more into cooperations with NGOs and organizations in Israel. And later on in 2014, I joined the Multi-Faith Alliance. And we started looking into ways to bring aid from Israel into Syria. And Israel wasn't very receptive to the Israeli government. Receptive to this. They said, no, we don't want to interfere in this war. They're killing each other. We don't care. But then there was this accepting of wounded, people on the border that was treated in Israel. And in 2015, late 2015, a project Good Neighbor project by an entity, I probably know it, Koga, that controls this humanitarian, I think also to Gaza and the West Bank, was in charge of that. So my organization, me personally, worked through the Golan Heights to Israel from 2016 to 18 to bring aid there. And it was an amazing experience, and that's also made me interact more with the people and with the more officials, more army people.
Did you visit? So you visited Israel?
Oh, but my first time was 2014, was a scary one, but by now I know my way in Israel pretty good. I rent a car and I go. My last time was I went to Arad, and
Wow.
and my friends was like, "Where are you?" I said, "No, where the heck is this?" I said, "Well, I explained to you. We went to see a project in a Bedouin community school that we want to implement in Syria." And from there, we saw some projects that Israel has done either in Gaza and the West Bank and in Israel itself. And one of them was water. And we went to a company called WaterGen that implemented some of these projects, for instance, in Gaza in hospitals, and they produced water from air, from humidity. And Syria has a similar weather, level of humidity like a desert life. So we started taking this equipment and implementing it in Syria. And of course, we got attacked for it. Like, the people start saying, "Oh, this is an Israeli government cooperation with I don't know what." I was like, no. This is pure humanitarian. Yes, Israeli company is selling it and donating half of the amount, and we're getting the other, and we're implementing in Syria. But the best part of all of this story is the locals, like people in Syria, and I don't know what am I allowed to say or not. They don't give a shit about this politics. Like when they knew that it's Israeli, it didn't matter. It's for them.
When you're thirsty.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, and actually, they have a good perception of Israeli technology. Like, it's a good one.
But how would Assad allow this to?
It wasn't under Assad areas. Assad wouldn't allow.
Right.
Assad
today he again controls.
No, not all of Syria. So Assad controls about let's say 60% of Syria.
60%.
Yes, he had less, but with the help of Russia and Iran, he took control. So there is an area around the northern parts of northern Aleppo, Idlib city, and this that is controlled under the influence of Turkey. There is a third, we call it east of the Euphrates River, that is mainly controlled by the U.S. with the Kurdish-led forces called Syrian Democratic Forces that control that area. So the need was actually in that area, and this is where we implemented these projects. These areas are a mix of Arab and Kurds, and actually the areas we implemented in were Arab majority areas. So it wasn't like it was Kurds. No, it was Arab Sunni majority areas, and people very happy. We've implemented now 5 projects in schools and hospitals.
You continue to do it?
Oh yeah, we continue
today?
Until now. Just last week we implemented one in a school. So what we do, we give the generating water, and we also provide electricity through solar power to the facility. So they get electricity, they get water, and through that they could get internet.
How the technology works exactly?
It's a generator that condenses the air and produces water from the air. You don't need any hooks, anything.
In the desert?
In the desert. This is the uniqueness of it. It's how to simplify it. Like
you read the Dune, I hope.
Dune?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The movie. It's exactly like in the movie.
It's exactly the same. So
crazy.
Dune was written very far
in the 60s.
Yeah, in the 60s. They didn't know that probably 40 years ago we'd have this technology.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's an insane technology. Even when we first implemented, I was skeptical, and people they were said there's nothing. I said no, there is nothing. And it's hooked to a water cooler. So the water comes in, and the quality is amazing. It's like you're drinking Evian or like Fiji water. It's so tasty.
It's pure. It's
pure,
really
very
pure water.
pure water, and it's amazing, and it's cold, comes cold. So people were astonished, and then we started like, this is why more and more now we have a list of facilities that are coming to us and saying, can you please implement this project in our facilities? Because, like, for instance, if you're on human dialysis in Syria, you need good water. There is no source of water, and we were facing more and more, and this is why we adapted in school. There was a cholera epidemic happening because of the bad quality of water that people were drinking. So this prevented a lot of diseases. This prevented people, dying because they
How many
didn't.
liters a day this machine can produce?
Well, I'm blanking now on the liters, but it can give water to around 800 to 1,200 people daily.
Wow.
I think it's 5 liters, so I think for a person daily, so maybe about 6,000 liters, 6,000, 7,000 liters a day,
Wow.
something like that.
Insane.
Yeah, and this is why we had it like we had a battery bank, because there was no electricity in most war zones or remote areas, no electricity. So solar we have battery bank, and you need to run it 24 hours because the consumption is mainly in the morning. So we run it all the time, fill the tank in the evening, and then people can drink it a day. So and we were trying to show people, Israel is benefits. There's beneficial technology, high tech in so many fields, water, agriculture, in so many things that we can work together to benefit each other.
Sometimes I feel, apropos, I don't want to make this too topical, but apropos also the Gaza situation, but the feeling sometimes is like, to change this indoctrination, it's like emptying the sea with a teaspoon, right? It's an impossible struggle.
I know. Yeah, I understand that. I'm not a pipe pipe dreamer or something like that. I understand that it's very tough. It's not an easy task when you have the population indoctrinated. Like, for instance, it's very hard when you have my community, my Arab community might feel that they are victims. They are victims of something that happened because of Israel and the Jews. And it was very hard for me and for others. And I wrote an article about it, and I said, we're both victims. We're not only victims. Everyone is a victim in the Middle East of somewhere, and everyone did something wrong in the Middle East in a way or another. But we have to understand that it's, and I try to give an example of our Jewish population in Syria and all Arab countries in the Muslim world. And I say, look, if you want to talk to other people that look at you as their enemies, at least we need to understand each other's grievances and where we're coming from. We virtually have 0 Jews in our societies. Why? How these people disappear? They left. I said, no one leaves their homes and their property just because they want to leave. It wasn't like that. So people then started understanding that what we did wrong to our Jewish society, how we didn't protect them, how we didn't let them feel safe amongst us, and how they left en masse everyone, where now we have 0. We need to recognize these sufferings. We need to recognize these tragedies. We can't just cancel them from our memory and then expect the other side to say, oh, you are the only one who are suffering and we didn't suffer. No, we both suffered. So let's discuss all of this. Let's open. But the first thing we need to do is talk. We can't just stay apart. We need to recognize what we did wrong. We need to recognize the tragedies that we made, and at the same time, how we can become better. So people around the Middle East can trust each other. We have a trust deficit right now. We don't trust each other because, our precedent, our history is not very good with each other. So this is something that is a process. It's a long one. It's a tough one. I understand the awareness. The people are scared. And when they are scared, they go tribal. But I don't see any other situation. I mean, you can keep, military engagement, but for how long? It will be weary on any society, on any mentality, on any people. So there needs to be a new way, and I think some Arab countries have started doing it. Like I see precedent of very good initiatives. And I think we need more and more of this, more engagement, more understanding, more talking to each other. Me, as a Muslim and Arab, talk to my community, and my Israeli friends and Jewish friends talk to their community, come together, understand each other, recognize each other's suffering, and let's see how we can move forward. I don't see any other way other than that. We can keep fighting, but it will destroy all of us mentally, financially, and we will lose a lot of our humanity, unfortunately.
Do you think you'll ever see Aleppo again?
Probably not, to be realistic. Probably not. I hope I will. Maybe not in my lifetime. At least I hope my kids could see their ancestral home. You know, I resonate with my Jewish brothers from Aleppo, who I have a lot of friends, and especially in Brooklyn, who has a very Halabi Jewish community. My story is something similar to their story. You know, they were pushed out for something they don't know, like they had no say in it, and they were living there for centuries. They were as original inhabitants as any one of us, probably, before my family. But so I resonate. I resonate now with their story, with what they went through. So I don't know. Maybe we'll be able to go together. Maybe.
What do you miss most about home? Is the hummus really that good?
So Syrian food is amazing. Halabi food is the best, in my opinion, and of course I'm very biased, but it is very good. You know, Aleppo, Halab is very similar to Jerusalem, by the way. It has a very similar stone buildings, architect and stuff like this. It's very similar, but Aleppo Halab is much larger. You know, Jerusalem is a smaller city, and the most I miss is the people. You know, it's always the people. You know, everything can be rebuilt. Aleppo has been destroyed so many times, earthquakes, natural disasters, and wars and everything. But as long as you have people, as long as your people are there and willing, that's will come back. And unfortunately, Aleppo's population probably is half what it used to be. And without people, the talent, the goodwill, you will never have the spirit. The spirit has died in Aleppo, unfortunately.
Okay. The NGO, do you accept donations? Can people?
Yes, we of course. This is how we accept donations. Yes, it's www.multifiesalliance.org, and of course they can follow us on
Social media.
Instagram, Facebook, and all other.
And are you active on social media?
I'm personally active in my personal domain. I'm a guy who likes to laugh a lot. I like to have jokes. I like to have fun with my friends. I think that laughter is the best maybe weapon against depression and against the PTSD that mainly a lot of people who witnessed war and atrocities and went through horrific condition, can heal themselves. And this is the way I saw it for me, myself, and a lot of my friends. So I'm active. Yes, I'm active on Twitter as well. Twitter, I'm more political, but in Facebook and other social media, I'm more of a
so
trying
people
to be
can
normal.
People can find you on social media under your name.
Yes.
Shadi Martini, like the drink.
Exactly like the drink. That's the easiest part.
Okay.
And it's Syrian. This name is Syrian, nothing to do with Italian. Yeah, 100% Syrian. It's Mar is Aramaic for master, and Tini is figs. So my family comes from an area which is famous for figs. So
Wow.
apparently they called us the masters of figs or something.
Wow.
My grandfather used to sell figs or something. So it's an Aramaic name. It's very
Nice.
ancient.
Very
Yeah.
nice. Shadi, thank you so much. You moved me. And in those turbulent times, it's something.
Well, thank you, Noyor. I mean, I really appreciate, your invitation. And, I can't say more than I hope everyone can talk to each other, understand each other, and where they're coming from and their worries and grievances, and try to help each other, because at the end of the day, we're in this land together. I don't see anyone is leaving or wants here to stay and want to raise our kids. So let's hope somehow we can reach out to each other and talk to each other.
Okay, for sure. Thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it, and keep on doing the amazing things you do.
Have a good day, and
Bye.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Happy New Year. Bye.